On a rainy, dark night in New York City, an arrogant millionaire speeds through the streets, impatient, focused only on his next big deal. Raindrops pound against his car window, matching the frantic pace of his thought. Suddenly, a homeless man appears on the sidewalk, knocking on the car window with an urgency that cuts through the sleepy city. Jake glares with disdain, ready to ignore him. The man whispers something unexpected, something that slips into Jake's mind like a disturbing yet familiar tune. Jake shakes it off, convinced it's just another crazy guy, someone insignificant on his way to the top. But as the night goes on, those words keep echoing in his head, growing louder, an insistent sound he can't quite silence. Something about that brief encounter has struck a nerve, something that begins to challenge everything Jake believes about himself and the world around him. What he doesn't know is that this random meeting is the first step on a path he never thought he'd walk. Path filled with revelations, unexpected encounters, and choices will put to the test the man he thought he was. The atmosphere inside the restaurant buzzed with a cacophony of laughter, clinking glasses, and the faint sound of piano music drifting in from the corner. I leaned back in my chair, surveying the lavish decor and the people around me, feeling a swell of pride at the success I had achieved. My friends and business associates surrounded me, each one eager to bask in the glow of my latest contract. My crowning achievement, or so I thought. "Jake, you've really outdone yourself this time," Mark, one of my closest colleagues, said, raising his glass. "I mean, who else could land a deal like that?" I smirked, shrugging off the praise. It was just a matter of knowing how to play the game. Some people just can't keep up. I scanned the table, catching the envious looks from others as they nodded in agreement. It was a heady feeling, being at the center of this world, where success was measured by wealth and status. As the night wore on, I leaned into the conversation, regaling my audience with tales of my latest ventures, each story more inflated than the last. "You see, it's all about making the right connections," I said, my voice dripping with superiority. "Most people just don't have what it takes to climb the ladder. They let themselves get bogged down in their little lives, while I'm out here making moves." I felt a surge of satisfaction as they laughed, hanging on my every word. But somewhere in the back of my mind, a nagging thought lingered, an unsettling awareness that I was living in a bubble of superficiality. Who had time for that? After the celebrations, I made my way outside, the heavy rain hitting me like a wall as I stepped into the New York night. I hurried towards my car, my mind still wrapped in the glow of the evening. The city felt alive, but I was only focused on getting home. I could already picture the comfort of my penthouse, the luxurious solitude it promised. As I approached my car, a figure emerged from the shadows, tapping on the window with a weathered hand. I glanced over, annoyance flaring up within me. It was a homeless man, his face drawn and eyes piercing. I rolled my window down just a crack, barely enough to hear him over the rain. "Please, sir, do you have a moment?" he asked, his voice barely breaking through the din. "Not now," I snapped, ready to dismiss him, but he leaned closer, his expression earnest. "What you ignore can be what you need the most," he whispered, a strange intensity in his gaze. I felt a momentary pang of confusion, the words lingering in my mind like a haunting melody. Who was this guy? Just another crazy person in a city filled with them. I shook my head, dismissing him with a wave of my hand. "Get lost," I said, my voice sharp as I pressed on the gas, sped away. The sound of the rain pounding against the car, drowning out any regret. As I drove through the slick streets, city lights blurred into streaks of color against the dark night. I tried to shake off the encounter, but the man's words echoed in my mind, nagging at me like a persistent itch. What did he know? I had everything I wanted: money, success, and the admiration of my peers. I didn't need anything from him. When I finally made it home, I tossed my keys onto the sleek marble counter, the sound echoing in the silence of my empty apartment. I tried to unwind. The man's words lingered, refusing to fade. I poured myself a drink, hoping it would drown out the unsettling feeling that had crept into my chest. "Jake, you're just overthinking," I muttered to myself, taking a long sip. But deep down I knew there was something more, something I was trying desperately to ignore. As I leaned against the counter, I couldn't shake the feeling that perhaps I had lost something vital amidst all my achievements, connection to people, to life itself. As I stepped into my luxurious apartment, the echo of laughter and clinking glasses faded behind me, replaced by the oppressive silence of my own thoughts. I had just celebrated what I believed to be the pinnacle of my career, a contract that would solidify my status in the business world. Yet, as the door clicked shut, a heavy weight settled in my chest, a feeling I couldn't quite shake off. I tossed my keys onto the marble countertop, the sound sharp and jarring in the stillness. My mind drifted back to the rain-soaked streets of New York, to the fleeting encounter with Charlie. "What you ignore can be what you need most," he had said, his words lingering like the scent of the rain that still clung to my clothes. I scoffed at the memory, shaking my head as if to dislodge it. Why should I care about the ramblings of a street dweller? Yet the echo of that phrase gnawed at me, an unwelcome guest I couldn't evict. "Jake?" Emily's voice broke through my reverie, slicing through the quiet. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed, her expression a mix of concern and frustration. "You're home early. I thought you'd be out celebrating longer." I shrugged, dismissing her concern with a casual wave. "Just wanted to get some rest. It's been a long day." She stepped closer, her eyes searching mine. "You seem off. What's going on?" I opened my mouth to brush her off again. The words died on my lips. Instead, I felt an unfamiliar surge of defensiveness. "I'm fine, Emily. Just tired. You know how it is." She sighed, frustration spilling over. "You're surrounded by people all the time, but you're still so alone. You never really engage with anyone." I felt the heat rise in my cheeks, irritation bubbling just beneath the surface. "What do you want from me?" "I'm building a future for us. All this is for you." "That's not what I need, Jake." She shot back, her voice rising. "I don't need money or success. I need you. I need you to be present. Care." Her words struck a chord, and I felt a surge of anger, but it quickly dissipated, replaced by a gnawing sense of guilt. "I'm doing this for us," I repeated, more to convince myself than her. Emily shook her head, disappointment etched on her face. "You're not here, Jake. You're physically present, but emotionally? You're miles away." With that, she turned on her heel and left. The door closing with a definitive click echoed in the quiet apartment. I was left alone, surrounded by the emptiness of my choices. I sank onto the plush couch, staring at the walls adorned with art. Felt more like a facade than a reflection of who I really was. The silence loomed as memories of my childhood flooded my mind. I could almost see myself in the park, laughing and carefree, the world stretching out before me like an endless canvas of possibilities. "Those were the days," I murmured to myself, a wistful sigh escaping my lips. I remembered the simplicity of those moments, far removed from the suffocating pressure of success that now defined my life. As I sat there, the rain continued to patter against the window, each drop a reminder of the storm brewing inside me. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was drifting further away from the person I used to be. Closed my eyes, trying to find solace, but Charlie's words echoed in my mind, relentless and haunting. "What if he's right?" I whispered into the silence, a question that hung heavily in the air. I was a millionaire, but what did that really mean? My success felt hollow, a shiny veneer over a growing sense of isolation. I had spent so much time chasing after goals, accolades, and the approval of others that I had lost sight of what truly mattered. Suddenly, the weight of my loneliness crashed over me like a tidal wave, and I found myself yearning for something more, something real. Following morning, I woke up with an unsettling feeling in the pit of my stomach. Charlie's words echoed in my mind. "What you ignore may be what you need most." I couldn't shake off the weight of that statement, no matter how hard I tried. I threw on some clothes and stepped out into the bustling streets of New York City, determined to track down the man whose enigmatic message had somehow found its way into the crevices of my mind. As I drove through the city, I noticed things I had previously overlooked: the worn-out shoes of a woman sitting on the curb, vacant eyes of a man huddled under a newspaper, and the quiet desperation that seemed to linger in the air. It was as if a veil had been lifted, and for the first time, I felt the stark contrast between my life of luxury and the silent struggles of those around me. I parked my car near Central Park, the vibrant green contrasting sharply with the gray concrete jungle surrounding it. Walking through the park, I felt a strange sense of purpose. I wasn't entirely sure what I was looking for. The need to connect with the world outside my bubble was undeniable. My gaze fell upon a woman sitting cross-legged on the ground, surrounded by splashes of color. She was painting a mural on a large canvas propped against a tree. The vibrant hues of blue, yellow, and red danced together, depicting scenes of resilience and hope. I was drawn to her, captivated by the way she poured her soul into her work. "What's your mural about?" I asked, genuinely curious as I approached her. She paused, looking up from her brush, her eyes sparkling with passion. "It's about the unseen stories of the city. Everyone here has a tale to tell, and I want to give them a voice through my art," she replied, her voice warm and inviting. "I've never thought of it like that," I admitted, feeling a bit embarrassed. "I usually see these streets from a distance, wrapped up in my own world." She smiled knowingly. "Most people do, but we're all connected, whether we realize it or not. Each stroke of my brush is an attempt to remind others that beauty exists, even in the darkest places." Her words struck a chord within me. "I'm Jake, by the way," I said, extending my hand. "Mia," she said, shaking my hand firmly. "So, what brings you here today?" "I'm trying to make sense of my life," confessed, feeling an unfamiliar urge to be vulnerable. "I've spent so much time focused on success and status that I've lost sight of what really matters." Mia nodded, her expression shifting to one of understanding. "It's easy to get caught up in that whirlwind. Sometimes it takes a wake-up call to see the world clearer." "What do you mean by a wake-up call?" I asked, intrigued. "Like realizing that the people we often ignore have stories that could teach us a thing or two," she replied, glancing back at her mural. "Art has a way of bridging those gaps. It's a connection that can heal and inspire." I watched her paint, lost in thought. "How did you come to this? Creating art for others?" "I was lost once too," she admitted, her voice softening. "I used to be caught up in the pressures of a corporate job, chasing after the wrong things. Then one day, I decided I wanted to create something that mattered, something that would connect people instead of dividing them." Her story resonated with me, stirring something deep within. "You found your purpose, haven't you?" I said, a hint of envy creeping into my voice. "I'm still finding it every day," he said with a smile. "But that's the beauty of it. The journey itself teaches us more than we could ever imagine." As I stood there, I began to see my own journey in a different light. Perhaps Charlie's message was leading me to this moment, to Mia, to the realization that I needed to open my heart and mind to the world around me. I took a deep breath, ready to embrace whatever came next, feeling a flicker of hope ignite inside me. The sun broke through the clouds the following morning, but the heaviness in my chest remained. I couldn't shake off Charlie's words. They clung to me like the damp air that hung over the streets of New York. I climbed into my car, feeling a strange sense of urgency. I needed to find him, the man I had dismissed so easily. I drove through the city, my heart racing as I began to notice the world around me like never before. The bustling sidewalks were filled with people, each with their own story, cacophony of lives I had previously ignored. As I wandered aimlessly, I felt the weight of my own privilege pressing down on me. Pulled into a park, hoping to find some clarity. There, I stumbled upon a vibrant mural that caught my eye. A woman was painting, her brush dancing across the canvas with a fervor that captivated me. Colors were alive, vibrant hues of blue, red, and yellow telling a story of resilience and struggle. I parked my car and stepped closer, my curiosity piqued. "Wow, this is incredible," I said, startling her. She turned, her paint-speckled hands still clutching her brush. "Thanks. It's a work in progress," she smiled, her eyes sparkling with passion. "I'm Mia." "I'm Jake," I replied, trying to shake off my initial awkwardness. "What's the mural about?" "It's about hope," she explained, stepping back to admire her work. "People often forget that even the hardest lives can have beauty. I want to remind them." I listened intently, drawn in by her enthusiasm. "How do you do it? Create something so beautiful in a world that often feels so bleak." Mia paused, contemplating her answer. "Art is my way of fighting against apathy. Connects me with people in a meaningful way. Each brushstroke is a conversation, a way to show that despite everything, There's always a flicker of light. Her words resonated within me. I had spent so long chasing success and status, wrapped in the superficiality of my existence. Do you think it really makes a difference? I asked, genuinely curious. Absolutely, she replied, her voice unwavering. When people stop to look, to engage, they start remembering what it means to feel. That's the point, to spark a connection. I nodded, feeling something shift within me. I've been so focused on my career that I've lost sight of what's important. I barely even see the people around me. Maybe it's time to change that, he suggested, her gaze steady. The world needs more people willing to connect and care. It's not too late for you. Her words lingered in the air as I left the park, igniting a flicker of determination inside me. I had to find Charlie. I couldn't let his message slip away again. Emptiness I felt before was now filled with a sense of purpose. I decided to take action. I joined a group of young volunteers at a community center that distributed food to the homeless. The energy was palpable, laughter and conversations swirling around me as we set up tables filled with sandwiches and warm drinks. I felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. This was a new world for me, one I had previously overlooked. As we handed out the food, I watched the reactions of those receiving it. There was gratitude in their eyes, a warmth that struck me deep. One man, his weathered face breaking into a smile as he accepted a sandwich, said, "Thank you, brother. You have no idea how much this means." My throat tightened, and for the first time I felt a knot of emotion welling up inside me. "I'm just glad I could help," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. I moved to another table where a group of women were chatting softly. One of them looked up at me and said, "You're different, aren't you? More present than most of the folks who come here." "I'm trying to be," I admitted, a wave of vulnerability washing over me. I realized I've been living in a bubble, and it's time to break free. "Good for you," she said, her eyes sparkling with encouragement. "It's never too late to open your heart." As I continued to serve, I felt the walls I had built around myself begin to crumble. I was no longer just Jake, the millionaire. I was a part of something bigger, a community of people who cared for one another. I engaged in conversations, sharing stories and listening with rapt attention. In a rare moment of vulnerability, I confided in one of the young volunteers, a guy named Sam. "I've spent my life chasing success, but I've never felt this kind of fulfillment before. It's like I've been blind." Sam nodded knowingly. "Sometimes it takes a wake-up call to see what's really important. Just remember, it's not about what you have, but what you give." His words struck a chord within me, igniting a desire to change. I was surrounded by people who understood the true meaning of connection, and I wanted to be a part of that. For the first time in a long time, I felt alive. As I stood at the entrance of the shelter, my heart raced with uncertainty. I had no idea what I was about to encounter. The air was heavy, with a mix of dampness from the rain and the faint scent of food being served inside. I pushed the door open and stepped into an environment that felt foreign, yet strangely welcoming. The warmth enveloped me, contrasting sharply with the cold, indifferent city outside. I scanned the room, taking in the worn faces of individuals who had stories etched into their skin, each wrinkle a testament to survival. My eyes landed on a familiar figure, Charlie. He sat at a table, his unkempt hair framing a face that seemed both aged and wise beyond measure. I hesitated for a moment, my mind racing with questions. What could I possibly say to him? As I approached, he looked up and a smile broke through the weariness. "Jake," he greeted, voice soft yet strong. "I didn't think you'd come back." "I had to," I replied, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "I wanted to talk, to understand." Charlie motioned for me to sit down. "You're here now. That's what matters." I took a seat across from him, table between us feeling like a chasm I wasn't sure how to bridge. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said the other night, about what I ignore being what I need the most." He nodded, his expression serious. "Most people walk through life with blinders on. They see only what they want to see. I used to think that success meant everything," I confessed, the weight of my words hanging in the air. "But I feel empty, like I'm missing something." Charlie leaned back, considering my admission. "You're not alone in that feeling. I used to have it all too, money, power, respect. But I let my vices take over. It's a slippery slope. What do you mean? I asked, curiosity peaking. What happened to you? He took a deep breath, his gaze drifting to the floor as if recalling a painful memory. I was an executive, had a corner office, a beautiful family, but I got lost in the grind. I started drinking to cope with the stress. One drink turned into two, and then I found myself in a dark place. I lost everything, my job, my family, and eventually myself. I absorbed his words, feeling a knot tighten in my stomach. I had no idea. But you're still here, Charlie. You're still fighting. Fighting, yes, but it's not easy. The world sees me as a homeless man, but I'm still the same person I was. I still have dreams, Jake, he said, his voice rising with conviction. And so do you. You just have to remember what truly matters. What matters? I asked, almost desperate for clarity. The connections we make, he replied, his eyes locking onto mine. Those moments when you see someone, really see them, and let them know they're not alone. That's what keeps us human, not the money or the status. I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of his words. But how do I start? I've built my life on something so superficial. Charlie reached across the table, placing his hand on mine. You start by being present, by listening. It's never too late to change. You just have to want to. His touch sent a shiver down my spine, a reminder of the warmth of genuine connection I had long ignored. I want to change, Charlie. I really do. A smile flickered across his lips, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. Then let's do it together. You might be surprised by what you find. As I sat there, looking into the eyes of a man who had faced more adversity than I could fathom, something inside me shifted. I had come to seek answers, but what I found was a reflection of my own struggles, my own vulnerabilities. Charlie wasn't just a homeless man. He was a reminder that life's true richness lies in the connections we forge with one another, regardless of our circumstances. And perhaps, in understanding him, I could finally begin to understand myself. The conversation between Charlie and me deepened in ways I hadn't anticipated. As I sat across from him, the dim light of the shelter casting shadows on his weathered face, I felt an unexplainable connection forming. Charlie's voice, though soft and slightly hoarse, carried a weight that made me lean in closer. Jake, he began, his eyes holding a glimmer of something profound. You know, it's not about what you have or what you've accomplished. It's about being present for others. He paused for a moment, letting his words sink in. I could feel the tension in my chest begin to loosen as I pondered his statement. Present? I echoed, unsure of what he meant. But I've built a successful life. Isn't that enough? Charlie shook his head gently, a sad smile gracing his lips. Success doesn't mean a thing if you're not connecting with the people around you. I've seen folks with more money than they know what to do with, yet they walk through life like ghosts. They're alone, Jake, even in a crowd. His words struck me like a bolt of lightning, illuminating the dark corners of my mind. I thought back to my recent nights, filled with laughter and clinking glasses, yet I felt more isolated than ever. I've always thought that being busy and achieving goals was the path to happiness, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. Charlie leaned forward, his gaze penetrating. It's easy to get lost in the chase, but true happiness comes from the connections we make. Even in my situation, I find joy in the little moments, sharing stories, listening to someone's struggles, or simply being there for someone who needs it. I may not have much, but I have that. I could feel my heart racing as I absorbed his wisdom. But how do you cope with the pain of losing everything you once had? I asked, genuinely curious. He took a deep breath, flicker of vulnerability crossing his face. The pain is real, Jake. I won't lie. I lost everything because of my choices, but I learned to find beauty in the struggle. Every time I sit down with someone at this shelter, I'm reminded that we're all in this together. It's the shared experience that healed. Shared experience, I repeated, the phrase resonating in my mind. That's something I've never really thought about. I've always been focused on my own achievements, my own goals. I've been so self-absorbed. Charlie nodded slowly, his expression full of understanding. It's never too late to change, you know? The first step is to open your heart to the people around you. You might be surprised at what you find. I swallowed hard, the lump in my throat growing larger. How do you do it, Charlie? How do you keep going? He smiled again, this time with a warmth that enveloped me. I remember that every moment counts. I could wallow in self-pity, but instead, I choose to listen, to share, to be a part of something bigger. When I help others, I feel more alive than I ever did in my old life. As I absorbed his words, I felt a shift within me. I realized that my relentless pursuit of success had left me emotionally bankrupt. I was missing out on the richness of human connection, and it was time to confront that reality head-on. "Charlie," I said, my voice steadying with newfound determination, "your perspective is changing me. I want to learn how to be present, to connect. I want to make a difference, not just for myself, but for others." "Then start small," he urged, his eyes twinkling with encouragement. "Look for the people who need a listening ear, a kind gesture. Every connection you make can lead to something beautiful. It's about the little things, Jake." I nodded, feeling a spark of hope ignite within me. For the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of purpose beyond my own ambitions. As our conversation continued, I realized that Charlie wasn't just a man I had stumbled upon in the rain. He was a mirror reflecting the changes I desperately needed to embrace. And in that moment, I knew my journey was only just beginning. I stood in front of the mirror, staring at my reflection, searching for the man I used to be, or at least the man I wanted to be. The memory of Charlie's words still echoed in my mind. Merging your life isn't about what you have, but about what you decide to do with what you have. It was a profound realization, one that had shaken me to my core. I felt a rush of determination surge through me, and I knew it was time to make things right with Emily. "Jake, are you coming?" Emily's voice drifted from the living room, pulling me from my thoughts. I took a deep breath and stepped away from the mirror, my heart racing as I walked toward her. I found her sitting on the couch, her expression a mix of hope and skepticism. "Hey," I said softly, sitting down beside her. "Can we talk?" "Of course," she replied, folding her arms, "but I hope this isn't another one of your I'll change speeches." "No, it's not. I mean it this time. I've been blind." I paused, searching for the right words. "You were right about everything. I've been so focused on my career, on accumulating wealth and success, that I didn't see how lonely I was making us. How lonely I was making you." Emily looked at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of disbelief and hope. "What brought this on, Jake? This isn't like you." I took her hands in mine, feeling the warmth of her skin against my cold, clammy palms. "I met someone. Charlie, a homeless man. He made me realize that I've been living in a bubble, surrounded by superficial relationships. He challenged me to look deeper, to see the humanity in everyone, including you." She frowned slightly, her brow furrowing. "A homeless man changed your perspective? That's unexpected." "Yes, it is, but it made me confront the emptiness in my life. I don't want to lose you, Emily. I need you, not just for the future I thought I was building, but for the present. I want to be present, with you, with everyone." Her expression softened, but I could still see the remnants of her pain. "It's going to take more than words, Jake. You've hurt me, and it's going to take time to rebuild what we had. I know, I'm ready to put in the work. I want to start by being more involved in the community, to make a difference. I want to help people who are struggling, to give back in a way that truly matters." Emily leaned back, studying me as if trying to read my intentions. "You're serious about this?" "I am. I want to start with something small, like volunteering at the local shelter. I want to understand the world beyond my own bubble." She nodded slowly. "Okay, but this isn't just a phase. I need to see genuine change." "I promise you'll see it," I said, feeling a spark of hope ignite within me. "I'm committed to this, to us. We start fresh? Just give me a chance." She hesitated, then finally spoke. "All right, we can try. But it's going to take time, Jake. I want to believe in you again." A wave of relief washed over me. "Thank you, Emily. You won't regret it. Prove to you that I'm ready to change." After our conversation, I felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. But I knew this was just the beginning. I needed to take action. Inspired by my new resolve, I decided to reach out to Mia, the artist I had met in the park. Her passion for art and community had ignited something in me, and I wanted to collaborate on a project that would bring people together. I sent her a message, and within moments, she responded with enthusiasm. "Absolutely. I'd love to team up. Let's turn those gray walls into a canvas of hope." "Great. I have some ideas," I replied, my fingers dancing over the keyboard. Let's meet tomorrow to discuss them? Sounds perfect. Can't wait to create something beautiful together, she wrote back. The next day, as I walked to the park, I felt a sense of purpose coursing through my veins. I was no longer just a man chasing after success. I was a man ready to embrace humanity, to immerse myself in the lives of others. When I arrived, Mia was already there, sketching out ideas for the mural. "Hey Jake, ready to get your hands dirty?" She greeted me, her face lighting up with a smile. "More than ready," I replied, excitement bubbling inside me. I've been thinking about how we can incorporate messages of hope and community into the mural. I want it to resonate with everyone who sees it. Absolutely. Let's make it vibrant and meaningful. Art can heal, you know? He said, passion infectious. As we brainstormed, I felt a sense of belonging that I hadn't experienced in years. I was no longer the arrogant millionaire. I was part of something larger, a community that thrived on connection and empathy. Together, we began to sketch out our ideas, pouring our hearts into the project. And for the first time in a long while, I felt truly alive. I felt a nagging emptiness as I wandered through the bustling streets of New York, the vibrant city filled with life, yet somehow devoid of meaning for me. The recent changes in my life, driven by a newfound awareness of the importance of connection, were not enough to quell the lingering sense that something profound was still missing. My thoughts drifted back to Charlie, the homeless man whose words had sparked this journey of self-discovery. I needed to find him again. I needed to offer more than mere sympathy. With determination, I made my way to the shelter where I had first met Charlie. The chill in the air matched the weight in my chest. What if he was still there? What if he had found the help he needed? Or worse, what if he hadn't? Each step felt heavier than the last as I approached the shelter's entrance, my heart racing with anxiety. Inside, the atmosphere was bustling with activity. Volunteers moved about, serving meals and engaging with the residents. But the familiar faces I had come to associate with Charlie were nowhere to be seen. I approached a volunteer, a young woman with kind eyes and a warm smile. "Excuse me," I said, my voice slightly shaky. "I'm looking for Charlie. Is he here?" She frowned for a moment, her expression shifting to one of concern. "Charlie? He was here, but I'm not sure where he is now. He had a bit of a setback and left a few days ago." My heart sank. "Setback? What do you mean?" "He slipped back into old habits," she explained gently, her voice laced with sympathy. "It happens sometimes. It's hard for many of them, you know? The streets can pull you back in." I swallowed hard, feeling a knot tighten in my stomach. "Do you know where he might have gone?" She shook her head. "I wish I could help. He's been struggling for a while. Best thing you can do is keep looking. He could be anywhere in the city." Determined, I thanked her and stepped back into the cold streets, the weight of her words echoing in my mind. Charlie's situation was more precarious than I had realized, and I couldn't shake the feeling of urgency that surged within me. I thought of the connection we had forged, however brief, and how his struggle resonated with my own. I walked purposefully down the street, past the towering buildings that seemed to loom over me like silent observers. Every corner I turned, I scanned the sidewalks, looking for a familiar face, a glimpse of the man whose insight had changed my life. "Charlie," I called out, my voice lost among the city sounds. I stopped to talk to anyone who looked like they might know him. A group of young men huddled together, a woman sitting against a wall with a dog, but no one had seen him. After what felt like hours of searching, I found myself in a narrow alleyway, kind of place I'd always avoided in my previous life. My breath hitched as I spotted a figure slumped against the wall. It was a man, dirty and disheveled, but as I approached, my heart skipped a beat. "Charlie?" I whispered, my heart racing. He looked up slowly, his eyes clouded with a mix of surprise and recognition. "Jake?" he croaked, his voice barely above a whisper. I knelt down beside him, my heart aching at the sight of him in such despair. "What happened? I've been looking for you." He sighed, a deep, weary sound that seemed to carry the weight of the world. I lost my way again. It's hard to keep fighting when the fight feels endless." I felt a pang of helplessness wash over me. "But you don't have to do it alone, Charlie. I'm here. I want to help." He looked away, shame etched on his face. "Help? What can you do for me? I'm just a nobody, Jake. You have everything, and I have nothing." "No." I insisted, my voice firm but compassionate. You're not a nobody. You have a story, a voice, and I believe in that. We can figure this out together. Please, let me help you. Charlie's gaze softened slightly, but his walls were still up, fortified by years of disappointment and pain. Why would you want to help me? You don't even know me. Maybe I don't know everything about you, but I know what you told me before. I know that you've faced hardships that I can't even imagine. You have wisdom that I need, replied, my heart racing as I spoke. I want to learn from you. I want to help you find a way back. He looked at me for a long moment, searching my eyes for sincerity. And if I say yes, what then? What can you really do for a guy like me? I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. Then we start small. Let's get you back to the shelter, get you some food, and talk about what's next. We can find resources together. You deserve a chance, Charlie. We all do. His eyes glimmered with a flicker of hope, and for the first time I saw a crack in his armor. You really mean it? Absolutely, I said, extending my hand to him. Let's take that first step together. He hesitated, then slowly took my hand, and as he did, I felt a surge of determination course through me. This was just the beginning, and somehow I knew we were both on the brink of something transformative. Cold wind sliced through the narrow alley, bringing with it a sense of urgency that I had never felt before. As I turned the corner, my heart dropped at the sight before me. There he was, Charlie, slumped against the brick wall, his once vibrant spirit now dulled by despair. The shadows of the alley seemed to wrap around him like a heavy blanket, and in that moment, I felt a wave of helplessness wash over me. Charlie? I called out, my voice barely rising above a whisper. There was no response, just the sound of distant traffic and the muffled beat of the city. I took a step closer, my breath hitching in my throat. I had come to help him, to offer a hand after everything I had learned in our previous encounters, but now I was unsure if he would even want me there. As I approached, I noticed the telltale signs of his struggle. The eyes, usually so deep and reflective, now seemed vacant and hollow. Charlie, it's Jake. Can I sit with you? I asked, my voice trembling slightly. Why? He replied, his tone heavy with cynicism. Why would you want to waste your time on someone like me? It was a question laden with pain, a sound that cut through me like a knife. Because I care, I said, my heart racing. You taught me something important, and I want to help you. Please, just let me sit here with you. I settled down on the cold concrete beside him, feeling the rough surface digging into my skin. Charlie looked at me, his expression a mixture of surprise and skepticism. You think you can just swoop in and save me? I'm not some charity case man. Turned his gaze away, staring at the ground as if it held the answers to questions that haunted him. I don't want to save you, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. I just want to be here. I want to understand. I've been living in this bubble of wealth and success, and it's suffocating. You've seen things I've never had to face. I need your perspective. He scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. Perspective? What do you know about perspective? You've got everything. Money, status, a fancy apartment. You don't know what it's like to lose it all. You don't know what it's like to be invisible. Maybe not, conceded, but I'm starting to realize how empty that life really is. I thought success would fill the void, but it hasn't. Just made me feel more isolated. You're right, so many people don't even see me. Not really, and I want to change that. Charlie turned to me, his eyes narrowing. Change? You think you can just decide to change? It doesn't work that way. It's easier said than done. His voice was thick with bitterness, tinge of anger flaring beneath the surface. I know it's not easy, I said earnestly, but that's why I'm here. I want to help. I've seen how much you've overcome, and I believe in you. I know you're more than just a man on the street. He sighed heavily, the walls around him beginning to crack, if only slightly. You don't know me. You see me sitting here, but you don't know the battles I've fought, the demons I face every single day. I want to know, pressed, feeling a knot tightening in my stomach. Let me in, Charlie. Tell me about those battles. Maybe together we can find a way to fight them. There was a long pause, the silence stretching between us like a chasm. I could see Charlie wrestling with his thoughts, the conflict evident on his face. Finally, he turned to me, his voice barely above a whisper. I used to be someone, you know? I had a life, a job, a family, but I lost everything. My career, my loved ones, even myself. It's hard to come back from that. I can't imagine how painful that must be, I said, my heart aching for him. But you're still here, Charlie. You're still fighting, that's something. You have a strength in you that you don't even see. He looked at me, flicker of something. Hope, perhaps, crossing his features. You really think so? I do, I affirmed, leaning closer. And I want to help you find that strength again. In that moment, we were two souls laid bare, connected by our shared vulnerabilities. Charlie's walls were beginning to crumble, and I felt a glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, we could both find a way to rise above the shadows together. As I approached Charlie, my heart raced with a mix of urgency and concern. I had searched for hours, retracing steps through the bustling streets of New York, my mind racing with thoughts of his well-being. When I finally found him in that dark alley, sitting against the cold brick wall, he looked like a shadow of the man I had met before. The light in his eyes was dimmed, and I could see the weight of despair etched on his face. "Charlie," I said softly, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's me, Jake. I've been looking for you." At first, he didn't respond. He kept his gaze fixed on the ground, his shoulders slumped in defeat. I could see the remnants of hope flickering away like the dying embers of a fire. Crouched down to his level, trying to meet his eyes. "Please let me help you." I finally looked up. I was taken aback by the pain I saw reflected in his gaze. "Help? Why would you want to help me?" His voice was hoarse, tinged with bitterness. "I'm just a nobody now. I don't deserve it." "Don't say that," I urged, my heart aching for him. "You're not a nobody. You're a person, Charlie. You matter. I know I can't possibly understand what you're going through, but I want to try. I want to help." Charlie shook his head, his expression a mix of shame and anger. "You don't get it, do you? I don't need your charity. I don't want to be a project or a pity case for some millionaire who thinks he can save me." His words stung, and I momentarily recoiled, but I quickly regained my composure. "I'm not here to save you, Charlie. I'm here because I care. I've seen the struggles you face, and I can't just walk away anymore. I've been living in a bubble, disconnected from the real world, and you've opened my eyes." He scoffed, folding his arms tightly against his chest. "You think you understand? You think you can relate because you had a bad day at work or your girlfriend left you? I lost everything. My job, my family, my dignity. I'm a failure." "Charlie," I said, feeling the weight of my own arrogance crashing down around me. "I thought I had everything figured out. I was chasing success and status, and I thought that would bring me happiness. But I realized I was just as lost as you are. My life felt empty, and I was surrounded by people. Yet I was utterly alone." His eyes narrowed, and I could see a flicker of interest behind the pain. "What do you mean?" "I mean," I continued, "that I've been running on a treadmill of wealth and success, but I never stopped to appreciate what truly matters. I thought I was better than everyone else, but meeting you, seeing your struggles, made me confront my own failures and loneliness." Charlie looked at me, and for the first time, I felt a crack in his armor. "You really think your life is comparable to mine? You have everything." "Do I?" I challenged gently. "I have money, but I've lost my connection to people, to life. I've ignored the very essence of what it means to be human. And now, standing here, I see that I could have easily been in your shoes." He hesitated, and I pressed on. "I can't change your past, but maybe, just maybe, we can change our futures together. I know you have talents, vision, something that could help not just you, but many others who are struggling like you are." "Talent?" echoed, disbelief coloring his tone. "What do you know about me? I'm just a washed-up executive who couldn't keep his life together." "Charlie," I said, my voice firm yet compassionate, "you're more than that. You have a story, a perspective that could inspire others. I want to help you find a way to share your vision, to create something that can help those who have fallen through the cracks, just like you did. Together, we can make a difference." As I spoke, I could see the walls he had built around himself beginning to crumble, piece by piece. "You really think I can do something like that?" he asked, vulnerability creeping into his voice. "I believe in you," I said earnestly, "and I want to be there with you every step of the way. Let's turn this pain into purpose, together." For the first time, a flicker of hope crossed his face. You mean it? You really want to partner with me? Yes, I affirmed, feeling a renewed sense of purpose surge within me. Let's create something meaningful. Project that not only helps you, but also gives back to the community. We can use our experiences to guide others. Charlie took a deep breath, and I could see the wheels turning in his mind. Okay, he finally said, his voice steadier. Let's try. But know this, Jake, this won't be easy. I wouldn't have it any other way, I replied, a smile breaking through the tension. Let's get started. Think this story was intense? Just wait until you find out the real reason Mia walked into Henry's life. What do they actually share? It's just the start of something way deeper. And what if I told you their connection goes beyond what you can imagine? To uncover the secrets Henry and Mia don't even know, click on the video popping up on your screen. Don't miss the moment when everything comes together, or maybe falls apart.